But we are given the knowledge to make the correct choice. And that knowledge has always been given. You'll find it in the ancient pyramids of Egypt, where the scales on which every soul was weighed had to be lighter than a feather, not to be eaten by the crocodile demon, and to be able to ascend to the realm of Ra and function as Isis and Osiris. It's that same myth, whether you put it into Christian terms or into Buddhist or Taoist. It's the same logic, the same truth that has been presented and taught for centuries since the fall of Atlantis, since the disappearance of the earlier yugas, since the amnesia of the human soul to its own true past and its own true future and its own real nature. And yet it never disappears from within us. The yearning is never lost entirely. And that spark of truth and of love and light have guided us to return home, to rediscover the information, to go past the breakers of resistance created by a society that ridicules the spiritual and the metaphysical, but to understand that those potentials still belong to us. They remain our birthright eternally. But now is the moment, not in the future. Now is the moment, while there is still time, to make that transition of consciousness from the bodily phenomenal plane to the plane of the real, that pervades but transcends and underlies and governs the logos of action on this life plane through the power of divine thought, of divine will. And so each of us is faced with the question, are we willing to make the sacrifice of the ego and the surrender of the purpose and the meaning of our lives from whatever egoic level of purpose or lack thereof we had been settling for? Whether a nihilistic meaninglessness or an imaginary form of spirituality, or settling for a social contract of an attempt to ameliorate the problems of a world that is knotted in impasse and deadlock that no ordinary methods can possibly help to alleviate. Will we recognize the reality of the realm of the miraculous? Or will the cynicism that has been opposed upon us, imposed by a social order that wants to keep us disempowered, the cynicism that rejects the higher, that rejects the reality of love, that rejects the goodness of the cosmos and its founding intelligence, or even the existence of that intelligence? Unless we overcome the resistances that have become an ideological normality, unless we are willing to show up to the other who is still stuck in that paradigm as if we are mad because we have left the herd behind, because we have left all of the worship of the god of Mammon behind, because we have left the concerns with fame and fortune of a phenomenal sort behind, because we have seen through the illusions even of romantic love and of whatever money could buy, or whatever other supplements to consciousness that are external to the self could grant glimpses of, unless we have become willing to enter into the silence of the real without distraction and without any trace of loyalty to the unreal. Then our ascension will be snagged upon those anchors of attachment, or of greed, or of lust, or of the hubris of the ego to show off its limited powers, to gain whatever approval and applause we have been trained to act in order to get. And if we're satisfied with those limited enjoyments, we will miss out on what is possible only to those who are fully awakened and free of the ego shell. And thus we gather together in order to support each other's journey, to be in the divine madness together, to share the rising tide of consciousness and the insights that we gain through our struggles, through our victories, and even through the temporary defeats, perhaps most through the temporary defeats from which we learn not to fall again in the same way, and to not judge the other for such defeats, but rather to support the transformation of pain into wisdom, and of fear into love, and of ignorance into the realization of God. And so we are here to share the realization that we are all one, regardless of how different are our cultural backgrounds, or our bodily forms, or our ages, or languages, or our egoic paradigms, that the oneness of the real, that is the innermost self, is now able to become that emergent diamond that all can see and appreciate in the awesome unification of every consciousness with the one intelligence and love that unites us all, and to live from that level at last.